Welcome to Shorty SuperCoach, and today we're going to take a look at everything that happened in JLT 4 over the weekend as far as SuperCoach relevancy is concerned. And I'll basically be looking at some of the players that we are considering and maybe a few guys who did something that's worth noting in the world of SuperCoach. So it was a full fixture, so of course this might be a bit of a lengthier video, certainly a lot of names down on the page. And I don't know about you, but I felt that throughout this JLT community series we had a fair few questions, a fair few answered, but equally I feel we left, especially this weekend, with plenty more questions, and if not, just a few more guys putting their hand up as a potential option for some of those key places in our side. So it was great to see a few guys really lock themselves in, confirm themselves, reassure us on a couple of those positions, but equally there were some guys that left you scratching your head and going, gee whiz, maybe they should be in my team. You know, it's very tough to really make final calls on them, but that's all we'll get. That's as far as we're going to see match practice wise. We've got a pretty good block of games for most players to work from, and if you need a convincing on any players, well, that's it. That's all we're going to see. The rest will just be reports, training and whatnot as the season closes in. We're just a couple of weeks away, so that's enough blabbering on for me anyway. I best get into it because there are quite a few names, and as always we'll start from the top of the weekend, and that was Gold Coast versus the Dogs. And I guess all eyes were on Gary Ablett as he returned. He played 81% of the game, 22 touches and 2 goals. Started in the forward line in the first quarter, I believe, and worked his way through the midfield as he always does. I don't see him in many teams at all, and I think that's partly to do with the fact that he might play a little bit more forward, but I think largely to do with the fact that his shoulders are a concern, and a massive concern. He is a bit of a point of difference if you want to go with him. I personally think that he will play a fair bit of midfield time. He's still an absolute champion when on the field. My concern would be his shoulders. So, you know, some people will go with him. He got through that game alright, so it'll be interesting to see. Cade Kolajasny racked up 30 touches, but I would have thought most people have probably crossed him off the list already and have a fair few other options in that back line that are putting their hand up. David Swallow, 20 touches from his 76% game time. So I think he's probably there and abouts. He's still very popular. Hasn't sort of exploded. Hasn't had that game where you just go, yep, we must pick him. But has done enough, and he's looked pretty good, played good games. And as we know, getting through these games is key for these returning players from injury, and he's done that. So I think he'll be in a lot of teams in that sort of mid-price option in our midfield, so he probably did that more justice on the weekend. And Tuke Miller had 20 touches and 6 tackles. Now he sort of falls in that category of a mid-forward option in your forward line. He's sort of a mid-price selection as well, a bit more on the higher end than, say, Swallow. I don't think I'll be going with him. I don't think he'd be super popular, but I know he has been talked about. Moving across to the Doggies, Luke Dalhouse, 27 touches. Again, I say it every week. He just does that week in, week out. He'll be consistent for you. He is a lock. Marcus Bontempelli returned. He played the 86% time on ground, 24 touches, and an equal team high of 5 clearances. So that was the only look we got at the Bont, and I think he did well, certainly did well, and I think a lot of people will select him. I think probably a few may have wanted to see a little bit more of him, or maybe get that reassurance in the one game they did play that he is a dominant force. But as we know, he's more about impact with his touches than just absolute accumulation. Jack McRae, 22 touches, 6 tackles. I've said it before, I'll say it again, I really do think he's a must for your forward line. Look, he hasn't set the world on fire through the JLT, but I personally don't think he needs to. He's got the runs on the board in previous seasons, and just take a look at his final series, it was outstanding. Jason Johannesson, 17 touches. He's sort of gone out of favour, and I think, and rightly so. I think we were all caught up early days with his Norm Smith medal and his run and dash, and you know how good he could be. I don't think too many people are really going to select him. I think others have gone past him, and he hasn't really shown enough through the JLT to just give you that little extra push to convince you. And I think JJ was the sort of player that needed to do that. I think he was worth considering, worth being on the radar, but he really needed to just say, look, here's me 25 touches, here's me real outstanding game, this is why you should have me. And I don't feel like he did that. So Anyway, that's one game down. Certainly a few to come. As I said in previous videos, if you haven't seen these already, I look to just talk about a couple of players as I did in that game and just may reel off a few sentences in regards to how relevant they are and where I see them, particularly now that we are rounding up the whole community series. So bear with me. Some guys I might talk a little bit more on if they deserve it. Others will just be a quick little sentence. So moving on to West Coast and Melbourne, and it was absolute dominant display by the Eagles midfield. I mean, Gaff 35, Marston 35, Wellingham 31, Yo 28, Prittis 27. But I guess the one that really stood out was Sam Mitchell with 39 touches. Now, unbelievable numbers. He's looked in fantastic nick. I will be preaching, I will be saying I hope people don't get sucked into this. He did just only have the 6 contested possessions. I really do think his role is different now. He used to be the extractor as a younger man. I do now think he's the sort of guy who is on the outside delivering it with his pinpoint passing. I think Prittis will dish it out to him time and time again. Don't expect huge contested numbers from Mitchell, but I do feel, having said that, he'll have a very good season. As I've said in previous videos, I just don't feel he'll go beyond the 105 average, and I think that's what we need if we're selecting him. So, fantastic game, but I still question his absolute ceiling in the real home and away season. Josh Kennedy kicked 5 goals for, and I think a lot of people are looking at him. Well, not a lot, just a few are, so he's worth considering. As I said, you'll get those games from him, but I do feel there are probably better options. If you are looking at key position players, I probably think Kennedy isn't quite in the top 3, maybe 4. We do have quite a few guys in the forward line putting their hands up for that sort of selection basis. Over at the Ds, there wasn't a stack to report, I guess, from this whole game, really. I mean, Clayton Oliver, Jaden Hunt, Jordan Lewis were really impressive, but I don't think they're Supercoach relevant. Jack Viney, 17 touches from his 71% time on ground. I think probably if he had 35 or something like that, I think a lot of people will be going, yep, this is Viney's season to really explode. It's funny how much weight and bearing these games do have, but particularly for guys that you maybe just need that little bit of convincing. You know, a player who hasn't got the runs on the board, he's looked good, you're a fan of him, but you'd just like to see a couple of games where they go bang and you're real confident. I think Viney falls into that mould, and he probably didn't do it. Christian Petrarca is another one. Of course, he had a fantastic game against the Blues, I think it was, where he kicked many a goal. Just had the 15 touches, and as exciting as he is, I think his JLT Community Series form has probably been a representation of what you'll get in the real stuff. He'll have his fantastic games, and they'll be more often than they were last year, but I still think, by the same token, you'll get quite a few of those quieter games and ones where maybe the Ds don't have much of an influence, and he does struggle ever so slightly. So I think we'll see a very good average from him, but you'd be a very bold Supercoacher to go with him at this point in time. GWS and North Melbourne, well, he sure just ran around and did whatever he pleased. 33 touches, and as Heath does, 27 of those were kicks, 10 rebound 50s. He'll be popular, so he should. He'll be in the top 3 defenders for the season, you would have to say. Certainly top 3 or 4. He's done it for years, so we can lock him away nicely. Toby Green really brought himself into consideration. Kicked the 5 goals, but also had 26 touches, 18 contested. Now, we can't doubt this man's ability to kick goals or rack up possession. It's just been a question mark over how frequently he can combine those two, and he did them both on the weekend. Now, so many Giants midfielders are worth selecting, and there's just so many of them that are quality. So I think it is a little bit risky going with Green, but the fact is he is a forward, which is good and bad. It'll mean that he will have games like that where he gets on the end of it, kicks a lot of goals. He's a very smart footballer, and the way that he does accumulate means that he can win a fair bit of possession, even if it's not in the best position to do so. I think probably he falls in that mould of where you're throwing him up against a caddy, or a Roughhead, or maybe Nankervis, or a Miller, or Wingard. Heaney's gone, maybe Green's now your man. So there's really a handful of guys that are separated by 100k or so that are real tempters. So I think I wouldn't absolutely rule out Green. I won't be going with him, but I can certainly see why people are starting to really take a look at him, because he has shown big numbers in the past, and that might have just been that little bit of push that some coaches needed. Josh Kelly had the 24 touches, and I don't think he did his chances any harm, and I don't think he did them any justice at all, or really improved them significantly either. So I think he's probably done what we thought, and he'll be in a few sides. Whether when the push comes to shove you can really select him will be another question. I think it'd be gutsy, but there are a lot of people who are on board Josh Kelly. Tony Goldstein, a lot of eyes were on him. 26 hitouts, 11 touches from 88% time on ground. And Bruce, what did he do? Well, he only had the 8 hitouts and played 3/4 of the game. So I think Goldstein, what do we know? He'll certainly be the number one ruck. I think Bruce will probably share it with him a little bit, and his spot will always be on shaky ground, Bruce. Certainly, if he's playing well, I think there's a spot in the side to share the load with Goldstein, but equally, he will possibly be on the chopping block regularly if he isn't really performing, because Goldstein, we know what he can do. I think there's few too many variables with Goldstein's output this season. Interrupted pre-season, the influence of Bruce, the North Melbourne side probably going down quite a few pegs. How does it all affect? It's a poor midfield. The list goes on. I'm not selecting him, but I think he did enough on the weekend to suggest that his body's in good tact. I don't think we can doubt his scoring. Maybe it's just a question of perhaps there's more appealing players in the ruck division at this stage. You know, the likes of Sandilands and Nankervis have really changed our thinking surrounding our ruck combinations. So Goldstein, a bit of a forgotten man after he was so popular, and has served us so well. He's not in my team at the moment. I wouldn't fully rule him out. When Grundy was struggling with the injury, Goldstein certainly came back into consideration. He just hasn't done enough, personally, Goldstein, to really make us sit up and look and take notice. So, you know, got through all right. Few question marks around him still. Mitch Hibberd had the 10 touches from 45% time on ground. Ed Vickers-Willis, 12 touches from 84% time on ground. They'll both be in the frame for round 1, if not probably already booking themselves in the best 18 potentially, but they'll be popular picks, and I think they're a good chance to be named round 1. Shaun Higgins, another one who falls into that real category that I was talking about with Green. And before you shoot me down, just hear me out. At first I thought, surely not, we couldn't go with Higgins, but the more I think about it, the more I feel he's not an outrageous selection. North Melbourne need these sort of players, hard-nosed, experienced types. Now, we do know that Higgins, when you think of him, you think of outside run and silky, not necessarily inside, but he's shown that he can be an inside midfielder through this pre-season. Even on the weekend, he played the 41% time on ground, 14 touches, 9 of those were contested, and he still kept up a disposal efficiency of 80%. Great use of the ball. He'll take a bit more responsibility now at North Melbourne. He could be a beneficiary, at least from his SuperCoach scoring-wise, is concerned by those players exiting and perhaps a weaker North Melbourne team. We all know his injury history. He's destroyed us many times before. I wouldn't sit here and say pick him, but I would certainly say if you're considering him and then questioning your sanity, well, I don't think you have to be concerned about that. I do feel like he should be considered. He has got through well. He's put together some really good games. He's kept in the frame, that's for sure. I think a lot of times we'll just continue to have that negative bias surrounding just the name Shaun Higgins. He's on many people's blacklist to never go again, but I just feel like maybe we should not be so harsh on those sort of players. There's been some that we've been burnt by before and we just never go back to again. Well, I think we've got to treat this pre-season as an individual one and treat him for what he's producing now with what will be a different role and a different season. And I think from what he's produced so far, we wouldn't be crazy to at least consider him at what is a nice price in our forward lines. And as I flip over the page here, go through a few more players. Fremantle and Carlton, well, it was all Nat Fyfe wasn't absolutely dominant. 38 touches, 16 contested. I don't have to tell you too much more about that. I think I've said it many a time. Nat Fyfe will be in everyone's side who takes this game seriously. Lachie Neale, 37 touches, 15 contested. Fife and Neil combined for 12 clearances each as well, combined together. So fantastic result. They are a fantastic 1-2 punch. Not many will go with Neil just because he had a poor pre-season, hasn't played too many games, but I think he certainly showed he was ready to go on the weekend. Aaron Sandilands, only the 6 touches, had 37 hit-outs, played 65% time on ground. So he's obviously managed to an extent, got a bit of game time, and I think he should be one that we do definitely consider, and I feel like he'll be in many sides, as he already is at the moment. I think he's in the top 12 as far as ownership is concerned. Over at the Blues, Sam Doherty, 30 touches, 9 rebound 50s. That's what we expect to get from him, and the reason why many people are going with him. Paddy Cripps, 26 touches, 9 contested, 5 tackles, 3 clearances from just your 61% time on ground. Strongly considering him, I must say. If you've seen my videos in the past or been a viewer for a while, you know that I'm a massive fan of Paddy Cripps. Now, I just feel like he could really have a great season despite the fact he hasn't put too many games together in the pre-season. I just think that I know it's important to have a good pre-season, and if I do select him, he is a little bit of a guy who's breaking a rule where I think they must have a good pre-season to be picked at that price. But I'm a massive fan of him. Maybe it's my man love and bias kicking in a little bit, but he's certainly in the frame, particularly after Pendlebury was a late withdrawal. I'll get into that in a moment. But I just feel on Cripps, some players need a big pre-season. I think we saw enough over Cripps' last 2 games. He's gotten 2 games, he's gotten time into the legs, and he's not a guy who needs to cover the ground extensively. He just has to rely on being reasonably fit and up to AFL standard, but he doesn't have to have a scorching pre-season because he's just the best reader of the tap off the hands, a clearance monster, and a contested ball beast. So you don't necessarily have to be breaking the barrier in your pre-season. You just have to be ready to go, and I feel like Cripps is now. So he'll be certainly one that comes across my desk, that's for sure. Caleb Marchbank, 22 touches. He's produced consistent numbers. He's priced at 236k in our backline. Probably a bit too pricey, but he has really shown that he could make some money. Probably not enough to warrant selection, given we do have a lot of defenders in that rookie price range, but certainly is showing that he's pretty well at home in the Blues back 6. Mark Murphy, 27 touches, 10 of those contested. I think with the likes of O'Meara and Dane Beams really setting the world on fire through the pre-season, Murphy's sort of slipped through the cracks and probably hasn't done enough to really take notice and make us really sit back and go, gee whiz, we must pick him. But he's done well. He's had a fairly good pre-season, hasn't played full minutes on every occasion, but I think if you were to select him, I feel like we should get a pretty good average, probably a 3-figure average. But as I've said on many occasions when comparing Beams and Murphy, I feel like you'll get a more durable Murphy, but maybe not as big a scoring. And with Beams, we all know the inconsistency with his body, but the scoring can be banked on. So just depends maybe where you sit in regards to your game plan and your mindset on those sort of risk versus reward situations. But I think we certainly know what we're going to get from both those guys, despite it being a contrast of points versus durability. Jared Pickett, 12 touches, 3 goals, 58% time on ground. I think we'd have to just quite simply lock him in. The Blues need a sort of player like him. He's now kicked quite a few goals through the JLT Community Series. I think he's looking like a fantastic selection. He'll have his games where, you know, he really goes away from the ball and you don't know where he is. You haven't seen him for a while, but equally to that, we'll see him have unbelievable 15-minute patches where he looks unbelievably good. So I think he'll be in the side unless we get a stack of midfield rookie options. I think that Pickett will be in many teams, and rightly so. And Cade Simpson, 32 touches, hardly gets talked about year after year. He's in the Matty Pritis mould of a consistent premium that delivers every year, but also delivers every year on the fact that we don't consider them. Really interesting, and I think Simpson will probably do what he always does. He'll have a consistent year, play pretty much every game, average your high 90s to early 100s, and I think we'll be happy. You know, maybe he's a little bit pricey this year. That's probably the main reason, but you know, there's no signs of him dropping off anytime quickly. So another great game from Simpson. Moving over to Richmond and Collingwood, Dustin Martin, 28 touches, 3 goals, 6 clearances. Had a fair bit of negative press during the week, did Dusty, and that'll continue throughout the season until he signs the contract. but it certainly didn't affect his footy. So he's looking very good. He's a damaging player. We all know that. We'll play midfield time. We'll also go forward a little bit, but he probably plays that role as good as anyone. He's a dynamic forward, can take a mark, is so hard to stop. Defenders panic on him. So I think if you want to go maybe slight point of difference, he is somewhat popular, but a little bit of a point of difference Dustin Martin could certainly be. Toby Nankervis continued to mount a pretty good case. Had a good matchup against Brodie Grundy. He had 16 touches, 9 contested, 18 hitouts and 3 tackles, Nankervis. So continued on what we know from him, winning a reasonable amount of ball in the contest, laying tackles. And from all reports, the Grundy versus Nankervis matchup, you could probably split them. They're probably 50-50. I don't think anyone really took the upper hand significantly, but by all means, I think Nankervis showed that he should be in most of our teams, that is for sure. Josh Caddy, just the 13 touches, wasn't fantastic, a few contested, but played a bit forward as well. I think a lot of people will lose a little bit of faith in Caddy off the back of that, and as I said, I think a lot maybe look at a Higgins or a Green and a few other guys floating around that area. Jared Roughhead, Nankervis might go into most teams, that's for sure. I'm going to stick strong with Caddy. I'm not saying he'll be an absolute lock in my team, but I'm also not saying that I feel like this 13-touch game is the be-all and end-all. He's shown signs through the pre-season that he was very good. May have just had a poorer game. I'm currently watching a bit of that match on replay, so like to see exactly where he lined up at the stoppages and centre bounces and things, but I think we shouldn't hit the panic button. I still think he'll mould into that Richmond midfield extremely well. Dan Butler, 10 touches, played most of the game, but I think he's not exactly your racking up the possession type, but he will provide amazing speed. Had a really good dashing run in the first quarter, and I think the Tigers like that aspect from him. He's exciting, adds something different to what is perhaps a one-paced midfield to Richmond. Now, Butler will probably play more so forward, but he does give that extra little bit of pace and is a good harasser in the forward 50 as well. So we can select him at a nice little rookie basement price, and I reckon he'll be in many teams, given he is selected in the round 1 side for Richmond. Over at Collingwood, Adam Treloar, 29 touches, 12 contested, kicked a long bomb goal. From all reports, was best on ground, and I think he should be strongly considered in many sides, as should Taylor Adams, 29 touches, 17 contested, 6 centre clearances. Loves it. He'll be in the midfield, should be in your side. Make no doubts about that. He should be in everybody's back line. No doubt at all. Brodie Grundy, really interested to see how he went. Of course, during the week, left the ground at training with a knock to his calf, and you just never know whether it's a knock to the calf, a calf strain. We get concerned about calf and Achilles these days. They're lingering little injuries, but he played, which was step 1, ticked the box, but also had 17 touches, 14 hitouts, and got through the game well, playing 70% of the game. And look, he was very impressive. As I said, against Nankervis, no one really took an upper hand, but he got through, and I think a lot of people probably saw that calf knock, left training early, ice on it, panicked, got rid of him, but I think we should keep the faith. He's played, he's still got 2 weeks. The fact that he played obviously means that it was just a knock, nothing too serious or sinister, so he's in my side, and I think he'll be popular. Will Hoskin-Elliott, 19 touches, 100% disposal efficiency, but I don't feel like he should be in too many sides. I think he's awkwardly priced and has had a reasonable JLT Community Series set up, but probably not enough to really convince or warrant selection. And a man who didn't play but is worth noting and outlining is Scott Pendlebury. Withdrew with Achilles tightness, soreness, whatever you want to call it. And that really concerns me. If I'm being honest, I'm looking at other options, which I really didn't think I would be. And it's just the fact that it's Achilles. If that was hamstring tightness or, my shoulder's a little bit sore, I would be sticking with Pendlebury. And I may well do so, but the fact that it's Achilles is so concerning, because that can lead to calf problems. They really linger on. They're hard to get rid of. They're hard to get right. And I know Pendlebury has been as durable as anyone that we've seen, but sometimes it just happens. Gary Ablett was as durable as we'd seen for a long time. Then you get a shoulder injury, you can't kick it, you can't get rid of it. all of a sudden that shoulder injury is just something that's in your DNA now, and we have to consider. I certainly hope that down the track we look at Pendlebury and don't say, oh gee, he's a fantastic player, but how is that Achilles going? I hope it's not something like that, but at this stage it's probably just worth monitoring how he goes through the pre-season and the rest of it, I should say, through training and the lead up to round one. He says he's fine. He said it was just cautious. Of course he's going to say that. I think we really need to do our due diligence on this one and keep a close eye on him, because we want him in our teams, because if he does come back well and it is just really a cautious approach, it'll be hard to get him into our sides, and we could be kicking ourselves that we hit the panic button. But I certainly think with an Achilles injuries, you must consider the worst case scenario. Flipping the page once more. Got plenty of pages here, that's for sure. Plenty of good names to consider. Matty Crouch, as we take a look at Adelaide versus Brisbane, as the Crows got home. Crouch, 25 touches, 9 tackles, 6 clearances. Look, he's really mounting a good case, as he did last year. I think we could see a really good season from him. I'm probably not going to have the guts to select him, but there will be people who do, and I couldn't argue strongly against it. Just the fact that maybe does he have the ceiling and the real time and time again hitting those big scores, or is he just a bit of a accumulator without being extremely damaging? But SuperCoach scoring system does reward those sort of numbers. Rory Laird, 30 touches, another great game, should be in your back line. Curtly Hampton is another man who should be in your back line, 26 touches, 14 contested and 8 clearances. He's gone from strength to strength throughout this pre-season and has looked fantastic, looked great. He should be in your side, 160k, locked himself into the Crows side and will be a very nice selection. Andy Otten, 19 touches, played 3/4 of the game. Starting to look like he will also be part of the Crows lineup, and I feel if he is, there are a few defenders in the key posts back there for Adelaide that he'll have to contend with, but at this stage I think we probably will bank on him with reasonable confidence, and we'll wait and see for those round one teams. But he's gotten through body-wise, looks physically good, and he racks up a little bit of the ball too. For a key post, I think he's probably that sort of guy who links up well, and out of many exits of the back line he's involved in, so could be a handy option at a very cheap price. Moving along to the Lions, and Dame Beams is currently a man who I'm racking my brain over. Now, he had 35 touches, 15 contested, 8 clearances and 1 goal. It's hard to ignore those numbers. Now, if you've tuned in over the course of this pre-season, I have been on the Beams bandwagon. Then I said no after he didn't really have a great start to his pre-season. I said nah. Hasn't gotten through it well. Hasn't had a full pre-season. He's not fully training yet. Can't go there. Now he's produced some fantastic games, fantastic practice games, and gone bang with a really good performance on the weekend. It's going to be hard to say no. At the moment, he's not on my side, so I don't think I'm going back on what I said. But it's something we've got to consider. I think, as I've always said, there's no surprise about his ball-winning ability and his scoring ability. It's just the body. Now, I don't think I'm going to take that sort of risk. I'm not surprised by those numbers he produced, but it makes you look and go, oh, gee, can I be missing out on those week after week? And I guess the main thing you want to be thinking about is you might have to cop a few weeks where he does go boom, but I think we'll be rewarded if we stick to our guns and look at him as a player who will be rested and is always a risk of injury, so with those knees. But he really does, when he produces enormous numbers like that, it makes you go, God, am I going to miss out on something here? It's such a good price. So he's really maybe and but to this point in time, I think it's just a knee-jerk reaction. When I really think about it, I'm going to have to just stick to my guns, and the real reasons aren't behind him not scoring well, but his body, which nothing has changed that, in my opinion. Stephen Martin, 19 touches, 41 hitouts. I think probably a lot of guys, like I said with Goldstein, Sandilands and Nankervis, the enormous rapid rise of them has really taken out of consideration some of these guys. And I think Martin is probably, he's shown what he can do. He was very good. Didn't have to contend the ruck with anyone. I feel like he'll have a good season, but I also feel like there are probably better options now. And I think, as is the flavour of the month, Nankervis and Sandilands are dominating discussion in our ruck departments. And Martin, while he did put together a good game on the weekend, probably hasn't done enough to absolutely convince us, and then convince us more so than some of those other likely types who are cheaper. Tommy Rockcliffe, 20 touches, 7 clearances. I'm a big fan of him. Didn't set the world on fire, along with Zorko, who had 19 touches and 6 clearances. Plenty of clearances from the fellas, but maybe not just as much outside ball. I think they'll both be fantastic selections. A lot of people will probably have Beams and a Rockcliffe or Zorko, so it'll be interesting to see what sort of combinations are set up there. Jake Barrett, 15 touches and kicked a goal. He certainly must be in the frame for a round 1 selection. He's at 127k in our midfield, and if he does get selected, he should be somewhat popular. I feel we'll have a few surprise packets in the round 1 teams, and normally we sometimes feel like there aren't many rookie price options, particularly in our midfield, but I think they'll pop up. Barrett could be one. Moving on to Port Adelaide and Hawthorn, and Paddy Ryder. Gee, finally delivered. He delivered very nicely. Didn't have to contend the ruck with anyone really. Trengove had 11 hitouts, but Lobie didn't play any minutes and was left out of the starting side. But Ryder, 12 touches, 35 hitouts, and even chimed in for a goal. And I guess if you're a Ryder fan, you're saying, well, Shorty, that's what I know he can do. And I'm saying, well, look, mate, I don't think he's going to do it consistently. So he showed what he was doing, did it well, played nicely. I would imagine he would have scored well. As you know, I'm not a big fan of the SuperCoach scores this time of year. I think it's better off watching the game and looking at their stats. But look, Ryder certainly put a good case forward and stepped in the right direction, and may just have, just as people were starting to write him off, may just have people taking notice once more and really reconsidering their selection around him. Another player who really had a good game, Brett Eddy. As a mate said to me, lock him in, Eddie. We love a bit of a pun, and you'd have to say that's on the money. Kicked the 5 goals, 4 from 15 kicks. No handballs. Bugger passing it off. When you're kicking 5 goals and having 9 scoring shots against the Hawks, just keep kicking, and that's exactly what he did. Fantastic game. Brett Eddy, get to know the name. He's a mature age recruit, had some great games at your level below AFL, so I think he's certainly a guy who's ready to take the game on and really be a player who will mould into the top level extremely well and have no real troubles with transition. He's priced at 102,000 in our forward line, so he should be in many teams. Sammy Powell-Pepper, he just keeps getting the job done. 23 touches, 12 contested, 8 frees against. If anyone saw that game, what the hell was going on there? 8 frees against. I don't think I've ever seen that high a number, particularly from a midfielder. You might see it maybe from a defender who has a dirty day, or a ruckman who gives away a few cheapies in the ruck and whatnot, but gee whiz, 8 frees against really hurt his score and overall, but I think he did enough, that's for sure. And well, did enough, that's an understatement. He's a lock and loaded player. Wins it on the inside, tackles hard, threw Sean Bergwijn around like he was a rag doll. Lock him into our side. Sammy Powell-Pepper, welcome on board. And also Travis Boak, bit of an injury. He's not relevant, but I think, the likes of Sam Powell-Pepper, and, there might be a couple of others that you might be considering. Riley Bonner, maybe. Certainly if Boak isn't there, helps their cause to A, get selected, and B, find a little bit more time in that rotation in the midfield. So that's all positive for them. Over at the Hawks, it always seems to be the same 3 guys that we talk about with the Hawks, but they're massively relevant. Tommy Mitchell, 29 touches, 15 contested, 8 clearances. As far as I'm concerned, should be in your team. I've done a player profile on him. Take a look at that. I'll delve deeper into it. But he's shown exactly what he's done each game. He'll have your good amount of touches. Pretty much half of those are contested, and plenty of clearances and tackles. It's a recipe for a strong average. Expect one from Tommy Mitchell. Jaeger O'Meara, 27 touches, 13 contested. He is now the 3rd most popular player in the game behind Fife and Dangerfield. So that says enough. Everyone's sold on him. They're on board, but I'm not. So there you go. Is that going to kill me? We'll wait and see. But I could be a team that doesn't have Dangerfield, O'Meara or Beams. Now, You might say, Shorty, you're a bloody nutcase, mate. What the hell are you doing? Why do I keep listening to you? You're just dishing me out trash. But I do feel if you listen to what I have on each individual player and some of the guys I have in my team, I do feel it is backed up well. Jaeger O'Meara, if I'm picking between Beams and O'Meara, I'm going Beams because I'm absolutely sold on his scoring. I know O'Meara's had a fantastic pre-season, and it's tough for me to sit here and argue and say, look, I don't think he will deliver a 3-figure average, because everything he's produced has gone against that sort of argument. But I am yet to be convinced that he will just have a full season under his belt where he just reacts to AFL at the top level, at the top pace, without any trouble after missing for such a long time. He's been great, he's looked in good nick, but at that awkward price, I just will not be selecting him. I will entertain Beams. I will most definitely entertain Dangerfield. As expensive as he is certainly well in consideration for my team, particularly with Pendlebury out. But Jaeger O'Meara, I will absolutely stick to my guns. He will not be in my team, and that is that. I feel like I cannot trust his body, and I don't feel like I can absolutely bank on his scoring. So he won't be my team, but look, he's been in a lot of teams, and he's in nearly half. So could be a point of difference for me. I could also be left wanting and be absolutely burnt. So we'll see how we go. But there's always that correctional trade if you really had to in the first couple of rounds. Jared Roughhead, 20 touches, only the 2 contested, but I did like that he laid the 6 tackles as well and 7 inside 50s. I enjoy the role he's playing, very appealing. I think he's probably going to be in many teams. He's a top 10 ownership player at the moment, and look, he's racking up nice numbers, can swing forward a little bit, but he's playing a lot higher, getting a few centre clearances as well. He should be a popular selection. And as we wind in to the last couple of games, Geelong versus Essendon, or Paddy Dangerfield. If you were ever wondering what he's about and had any doubts, he certainly showed you in that third quarter. He racked up 38 touches for the game, 14 in the third term as the Cats turned the game on its head. 17 of those contested for the match and 9 clearances. So that's just a classic Dangerfield game, and it was absolutely dominant. Joel Selwood likewise, 32 touches, 12 of those in the third term. He also kicked 2 goals. And look, had the 6 clearances, 13 contested possessions. Probably could be a point of difference. I think from memory he's in about 5% of teams, so he's looking very good. I mean, I think he's a player that has historically been very popular. I don't think he'll get back to that. He had a lot of years where he averaged close to your 120, I think from memory 115 to 120. I think he's probably more around your 110 mark now, particularly with Dangerfield taking a bit of the load off him. It helps Selwood, but it also takes away maybe just a couple of points when Selwood has to carry such a load. But I think over the course of the season it does benefit one another, and he could be a point difference for your side. Zach Tui, 25 touches, only the 4 contested. Now he had 15 in the first half, and then as Geelong got on top, and as perhaps we didn't have to fiddle around in the back line as much, Tui didn't get as much of it in the second half, but he's always involved with our links from the back line, and he's always a guy we look to exit our defensive 50, and is often our chosen man to kick in from the point. So I think he plays on from time to time. I think he's going to have a very good season. I guess a lot of people will mount the case that he's been in the system for a long time and never shown the ability to go any higher than 81. But I'm strongly considering him. In fact, well, he's in my team at the moment, I must say. Hopefully no bias involved with that being a Cats man, but I do take an unbiased look at this game. I think he's got the role he's always hoped for. He won't be in anyone's shadow. No Simpsons, no Dohertys. I think he'll be the absolute man that we look to give the ball to out of the back line, and I think he'll be a good selection. Tom Stewart, just the 10 touches, but I reckon he's just basically cemented a spot in the Geelong back line and should be in your teams. Brandon Parfitt, very good play. He looked very good. 18 touches, 7 inside 50s. That was second for the Cats. So I think he's a player who really mounted a good case for his round 1 selection, provides something that we need. He's got a bit of Alan Christensen about him, that player who can go in the midfield but also dynamic up forward. A lot of good hype around him when he was selected in the draft for Geelong, I think we could see him in round 1. So a couple of debutants for the Cats, and I reckon they both should be in your SuperCoach side. Moving along to Essendon, Jobe Watson, 27 touches, 15 contested. Again, did a good game. Is it enough to really convince you? I think a lot of people will have him, but as you know, I'm not quite trusting him. I think he'll be falling in that category of somewhat popular, not hugely popular like an O'Meara, but I think a lot of people will like the look of him, but I just don't think he's going to make enough cash, and I don't think he's going to be a top 10 mid. So enough said. Dyson Heppel, same can be said for him. He had 24 touches, but I'm not sold on the fact that he's going to explode to be an absolute super premium, and he's not going to make us cash. So I think both those guys, while it's great to see them back out there, both playing good footy and looking extremely well in what is a quality Essendon midfield, I don't think they tick either box in regards to our SuperCoach selection for the midfield. Zach Merritt could be a bit of a point of difference now. He's shown what a fantastic player he is. He had 24 touches, but I just think with Heppel and Watson coming back, the workload will be spread a little bit, and I just think it'd be an enormous risk to start with Zach Merritt, who is young, has had a fantastic premium numbers season, but it was in a team that had such a reliance on him. He and Zaharakis, so much footy went through him. They attended so many centre bounces and stoppages. I think he'll have a very good season, average 3 figures no doubt, but I think there's probably better options for such a price tag. Andy McGrath just played the 47% time on ground, 7 touches. I think we've got to put a line through him. The number 1 pick, obviously going to be a very good player. When he gets the ball and what he does looks good, but he is yet to show that he's going to get a fair bit of it. And to pay the 220 odd K or wherever he's at, just too much, far too much for a bloke who hasn't set the world on fire. As I've said previously, a lot of good defensive options in our rookie for the back line. So certainly one to probably put a line through. And in our final game, St Kilda and Sydney, Jack Steele really put his hand up. 28 touches, 10 contested, 5 clearances, 12 tackles, and was absolutely fantastic. He's 347k as a mid-forward, and a lot of people will be looking at him. That was a full dress rehearsal for the Saints. All their midfielders played. He attended many a centre bounce, many a stoppage. He's a hard-nosed in and under mid, as we always knew when he was at the Giants. Will he now get the opportunity to absolutely show that week on, week out? We'll have to wait and see, but he certainly did his cases a world of good on the weekend. Nicky Rewalt, 24 touches. He's just a little bit expensive for mine, but I really want to have him in my team at some point in the season. He's just playing that beautiful wing role, covers the ground beautifully, takes marks, gets your inside 50s. I think he'll be a fantastic selection. If you've got him, could be a nice little point of difference, and I reckon he'll be a very good selection this year. Jack Billings, 25 touches. Again, you're probably going to look at he and Steele and really compare them. Probably lean towards Steele, I reckon, just by the nature they play. But Billings, he can be a match winner. I must say I didn't see all this game, just snippets, but he could be, they both could be players who explode, but they equally come with a real amount of risk because they are mid-priced. Never shown the ability to go huge. Young players, when will they explode? Highly touted. A lot of questions to throw around. If you can get the right answer, you'll reap the rewards. Looking at Sydney, Lance Franklin, 22 touches, 2 goals, 4. 1 clean of the ball. As you would have known in my player profile, if you had a look at that, I have written off Buddy Franklin as far as fantasy relevancy goes. So a pretty big goal there. If you want to have a look at why and my exact reasons, well, you can head along to that player profile. He was good on the weekend, obviously, but my point stands about Franklin. And if you're interested in why, you can go along there and I go into detail. Now, Zach Jones, 26 touches. A lot of people will be taking a real hard look at him. Of course, Mitchell has left the club. Now, Isaac Heaney is also missing. Callum Mills didn't set the world on fire, but there are midfield positions available, and Zach Jones is a man who's really looking to take one, and that's what he did on the weekend. He showed that he can win plenty of the ball, lay a lot of tackles, and put it inside 50 in clearances. So, could be a man that we have a look at. I won't be. I think there's probably a few better options in my opinion, but I know he's in quite a few sides that I've had a look at just around the circles and forums that I'm having a look at. Jake Lloyd, probably not really SuperCoach relevant, but I think could be the next rebounding defender at the Swans. 30 touches, just 3 contested, but used the ball at 93%. So fantastic by foot, and I think he's going to be one of those guys that maybe we consider down the track, or maybe just surprises of, oh, gee, look, he's really quite a good rebounding defender. Maybe could have a good average this season, maybe one for your SuperCoach draft. Finally, Darcy Cameron, probably got to put a line through him. Only played the 42% time on ground and 5 touches. So, again, hasn't got a stack of minutes, hasn't got a stack of the ball. I think he's probably going to be struggling for a round 1 spot. So I feel like most likely we're just going to go with a real cheap ruck 3. And I think unless Cameron somehow is named round 1, which looks unlikely, I feel like he should be wiped off our list and taken off our radar. So there you go, there's a wrap up of JLT 4. Thanks for joining me. I'm looking forward to a glass of water because that was certainly a long list of names. So hopefully you guys enjoyed it, because it certainly took a bit sifting through the stats and having a look at as many games as I could across the weekend, but I certainly enjoyed it. It's a great time now. It's a great time in the world of SuperCoach. A tough time, but a great time. It's when we're sifting through a world of numbers and a number of players that we want to pick but we can't pick, and we love them, but will they let us down? Is he too risky? Geez, look good. Is it a trap? There's so many questions, and this is where it's a bit of fun. You can swap your team around. You got your players that have really put together a good pre-season. All the stats are out there for us to have a look now. There's plenty of JLT games that players have played, so if ever we need a reference point, it's certainly been over the last month. Certainly still a lot of questions to be answered, but it will be very intriguing to see where people lie on certain players and how their ownerships change, because certainly there's a few flavour of the month players, but equally there are a lot of guys that have really put their hand up as must-have selections across the past month. So thanks for joining me throughout all these JLT wrap-ups, in particular today's. I'll have a few more player profiles on the way. If you're enjoying what I'm doing, head along and subscribe. Get along to my Facebook page, give that a like, but as always, comment on the video, let me know your thoughts, give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, share it around to your mates, and as I said, subscribe to the channel. We're nearly at 600. If I could get, around the 620 mark by the time round 1 hits, that would be absolutely fantastic, and that's probably where my goal's at the moment. So really appreciated the support that's been delivered through the pre-season. As I said, a few more player profiles to come. I'll have a look at a few burning questions probably in the lead up to round 1, and of course a rookie video, which a lot of people have been requesting. I just wanted to get a look at all the JLT Community Series games just to get a good grasp on how round 1 sides will look, and a full reference on how those players are going. But don't get me wrong, there will be a rookie video coming your way very shortly. So thanks for tuning in, guys. Much appreciated as always, and I'll catch you soon.